Hi, my name is Emily. This is my project or my presentation on medieval times and the 21st century. Hope you enjoy. Women in the medieval times were not allowed to have a mind of their own. They had no rights, no education. They only cared for the family or the home. So they were basically housewives, and they were seen as properties. They were sometimes sold to other men in order to just have a wife. For example, like, I know this is going to sound really tedious, but for ugly men, women were sold to them because no other woman would want to be with them. Noble women played a large role and important role in the functioning of the estate. They were responsible for managing the household's quote-unquote inner economy, such as cooking, brewing, spinning, weaving, and caring for yard animals. When the Lord was away for long periods, his wife became the sole manager of the family properties. Often the responsibilities of the estate fell permanently to her if she became a widow. So, for example, if she became a widow, she would have to get money of her own. And in medieval times, a lot of women were not allowed, or they didn't want a woman working for them. As you can tell, what I just read, the Lord, they would have to call their husbands their Lord. Women in the 21st century are educated and can have their own degree and job now, have the same rights as men, can have a say in political views. As you can tell, that is Michelle Obama, the first lady. And they can be independent. They don't have to have children. They don't have to be married, and they can own their own cars, houses, whatever they want. Multiple women from past centuries have changed the world in many different ways and have also paved the way for women to enjoy many benefits in the future. During historical times, the typical and normal way of life for women consisted of achieving many different goals, but still always remained unequal and inferior to men. The historical woman could not vote, hold jobs outside of the home, or even have a place in politics or government. Historical women only managed the home front, including the raising children and all of the homemaking responsibilities, which oftentimes included growing food and building the home. Women were not in charge of many things outside of the homemaking responsibilities and could not think or speak freely as they can today. Now, women are finally stepping out of their historical role of only mother and housewives. The modern woman has a much different and better lifestyle with many different choices. Modern women also look, dress, and act much differently than historical women. Just like other creatures in the world, women have also evolved and are continuing to evolve to be able to adapt to their new, ever-changing environment. Even women in other countries are breaking the old traditional boundaries to change with the times. Some similarities for women in the medieval times and 21st century are women can still be housewives if they want to, men still provide for families in their homes, and men are still seen as superiors in society. What I mean by all of that is, obviously, if you want to be a housewife, you can be a housewife, really, as long as your man is providing for you and your kids or whatever, and really, if it keeps you sane, then go ahead. Men still provide for families in their homes, so in, typical homes where it's like a mom, dad, and then the kids, sometimes the man usually always has a more professional job, or it earns them more money, they get paid more, so they are usually the ones with most of the income coming into the home. So that's why I said men still provide for families in their homes. And also in the case of the woman wants to be a housewife, the wife wants to be a housewife, then obviously the man the husband is providing in the home. Men are still seen as superiors, for example, like in construction sites or even like as mechanics and stuff. Like a lot of them think, oh, a girl can't, or a woman or a girl can't be a mechanic or a construction worker because they're not strong enough, or yeah. But basically those are the similarities. During the healthcare in medieval times, they used natural remedies. Women had the option to either have natural births or cesarean, but they didn't have any anesthesia. So, yeah. And also, they give birth at home instead of at the hospitals. There was no understanding of different illnesses. Social status affected getting treated if they were sick. So if you were poor, it was less likely if you got a better treatment. And there was no medication such as like antihistamines or anti-inflammatory. At the Italian city of Salerno, interest in medicine had persisted for centuries. Greek and Muslim physicians there had studied the use of herbs as cures and had experimented with surgeries. The 12th century unsheared in a new interest in Greek medical texts and in the work of Arab and Greek doctors. Ideas from this medical literature spread throughout Europe from Salerno and became the basis of training for physicians at other medieval universities. University training gave physicians high school status and allowed them to charge high fees, although their diagnosis and treatments were based on classical theories, not on interactions with the patients. Although medicine and law were important academic disciplines, in the Middle Ages, theology was the quote-unquote the queen of sciences. Paris became the place to study theology, and in the first decades of the 12th century, students from all over Europe crowded into the Cathedral School of Notre Dame in that city. The healthcare system between now, the 21st century, versus the healthcare system in medieval times is very different. Surgeries are not available for anyone and anything. Women are not available to get anesthesia and give birth at hospitals instead of their homes. Medications are used to treat different illnesses, diagnosis for illnesses such as COVID or if you have the flu, and vaccines are available to treat different viruses such as like the flu or hepatitis. The focus of the 21st century healthcare system must be the patient. Such a system will ensure that patients have access to the safest and highest quality care, regardless of how much they earn, where they live, how sick they are, or the color of their skin. So versus the medieval times, they would not be able to get as good of a treatment depending on like if you were poor or rich. Okay, this is now similarities with healthcare in medieval times and 21st century. Everyone did the best they can do. Cesarean section was an option back then during medieval times and now as well. They both pull teeth out and they both set broken bones back. So what I mean by cesarean section, like I said, in the medieval times it was offered, or you could still do it, I guess, but there wasn't any anesthesia during the medieval times. That's really the only difference, but it was still done. As well as pulled teeth out, again, there was no anesthesia back then, so if you had to get a tooth pulled out, it would have to be without anesthetics, as well as setting a broken bone back in. And as always, everyone did the best they can do. Only really thing I think I would find very unfair would be the fact that during the medieval times, if you were poor, you weren't able to get as good quality of healthcare or treatment, I can say. These are my references. I used a article I searched up on the web, and as well as the textbook in order to get all my information, the things I read and the things I learned. And thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the slideshow, and I hope you learned the similarities and differences between the two different topics of medieval times and 21st century.